Hi friend, I just wanted to take a minute to invite you to our Lash Biz Babes Experience 2026. This is a one-day all online event happening on May 2nd, and our theme for the year is going all in. We are shaking things up and doing it differently than anyone ever has before. This is going to be an all online event as usual, but it's going to be 100% a curated journey throughout your day as we guide you through the mindset, strategy, and passion needed to go all in on your business to make it your best year in business yet. All lash artists, estheticians, and beauty professionals are invited to join us. There will be guided sessions, interactive workshops, a panel discussion, and big giveaways happening throughout that whole day. And tickets are on sale now for only $199. Payment plans are available. Let's go all in on our businesses for 2026 together. All the details and the link for tickets are down in the show notes below. I would love to have you join us online in May. Welcome to Lash Biz Babes, the podcast for solo beauty business owners who want to build a full clientele and create a business and life that they truly love. My name is Erica. I'm your host. I'm a lash artist turned beauty business coach, lash educator, and social media manager for salons and beauty businesses. I'm so happy that you're here. Let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. Welcome to the show. I'm super excited to finally have you on. So today we have Megs Saxton. She is a licensed esthetician of almost 10 years, a podcast host and educator. She specializes in hand-tied threading and brow lamination. She loves to share the knowledge she's accumulated over the years and help other artists build up their brow businesses. So welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. And first and foremost, if you just want to kind of tell us how you got into the beauty industry.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. It's weird hearing the intro being a podcast host too. It's like weird being on the flip side of it. I was like, oh.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that.
But I got started quite a while ago. I feel like the landscape of the industry has definitely changed in the last almost decade. But I was originally I worked for an orthodontist, and I was trying to get into the registered dental assistant program. And the class ended up being full. And so I kind of just ended up being like, what other trade school options are there? Because college was not my thing. And then I stumbled upon somebody was like mentioned aesthetics. And I was like, I've literally never heard of that before, which is crazy. I just feel like it's so underrated. But once I kind of looked up and researched it a little bit, I was instantly hooked. And I was like, this is so cool. And I think what draws a lot of us to the beauty industry, not necessarily the aesthetics of it all, but like the flexibility of it. There was so many options under one license that I thought that was so cool that you could do that one thing and then have all these doors open. So originally facials is what drew me in. I had acne growing up, and honestly still something that I struggle with from time to time. I have a better handle on it 10 years in, but it was definitely something that, messed with my confidence, and it drew me instantly to like, not only selfishly for the fact that I could learn how to take care of my own skin, but then also help others take care of whatever skin concerns they have. And then slowly, as I was in the industry, I always like to mention that when I started, I was the typical, like, I know everything. School taught me everything I need to know. And I went out right on my own, and I totally flopped. I wanted to do literally everything my license could potentially do, and it was just a major failure. So after that, I took a step back and really was like, okay, wait, what do I actually want to do? And I started just taking any job in aesthetics, the field that I could. I worked under a plastic surgeon for a little bit. I did some commission work, and then I ultimately landed in a boutique brow studio. So we specialized in makeup and brow services. And that was it when I joined. And they are where I learned threading. So when beauty school, hated brows. I didn't like waxing at all. Waxing was like, I never got the feel for it. I struggled with it so much, and it gave me so much anxiety to perform. And threading, I just fell into a lot easier. I really liked that I had a clear view of my client's brow the whole process. Because I think when we're learning waxing, it's so scary that you don't know where the wax is going until you like really learn it. You're like, I'm just putting this down and putting that strip over and have blind faith that my lines are straight or whatever it may be. So I liked that I could have a clear view of threading. And then once I really like stepped into the threading world, it was it for me. And I really never looked back and just continued to niche down more and more and more until here, where I'm just doing brows and educating in it now.
I love that. So that was my next question. Like, do you only do brow threading and laminations now?
Yeah, so my services in my studio are super limited. I do brow threading. I still offer waxing because I don't want to be like obsolete. I want to make sure that I can accommodate to anyone and everyone's comfort level. But I will say I'm like 98% threading. And then I do tinting, brow lamination, and lash lifts. So lashes are the only things that I kind of dabble outside of the brow world. But I feel like doing brow lamination, lash lifts are so similar in concept and time frame and everything that it made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. And so with that, you mentioned before that you did a bunch of different services right out the gate, right? So if there's anyone who's listening who's like maybe thinking about getting into the industry or like, oh, should I niche down? Like, what would your advice be where versus like offering a bunch of different services versus niching down? What's your take on that?
It's a tricky question because I feel like ultimately my advice is always to niche down, but I think right out the gate, you don't know how to niche down because you don't really know what you want. So if I would have niched down, I would have just dove right into facials. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't have been successful, but I don't think that I would have had the same passion had I not tried everything and then ultimately landed on threading and it like kind of it pulled me that way. And I'm so glad it did because I'm stoked for where it's brought me and where I am now. So I feel like yes and no. Like I think niching is really great once you find your thing and your passion and like something that you can sustain because I know that people in the beauty industry, we have so many options. So it's easy for us to want to jump around and take on the newest, most innovative treatment that comes out. You know, we get all those emails and we hear about it on social media and you're like, oh, I want to offer that to my clients. They love that. And I was guilty of that at first. I wanted to jump on everything, but you end up spreading yourself so thin and then maybe investing in stuff that ends up being a waste of money. I know I've done that plenty of times too. And then just not been able to sustain it over time. The trend dies, your passion for it dies, or any number of things. So I feel like we kind of have to suss it out and try different things until we find what like we're really truly passionate about so that we have that longevity. Because I never wanted this to be, temporary. This was my career from the get, and I wanted it to stay forever. So I feel like it's really important to find that forever thing for you.
I really like your take on that, like your advice with that, because I feel like there's a lot, I don't know, I think there's a lot of opinions on that. Like, oh, you
Uh,
really need to niche down, or there's not a whole lot of like, okay, find what you really love and then run with that. Like, I don't feel like I've heard many people say that. So I really like that a lot. And I was also just thinking about it. I think you're the first, if not one of the first guests I've had on who's in the industry, but doesn't exclusively do lash extensions. So, like,
you guys niche down, I think, a lot quicker and more
yeah,
efficient than the rest of the aesthetic beauty world. Like, I feel like hair and lashes is one of those things that like get very laser focused because there's so much to learn. And I think it took us a little bit extra to like figure that out with the other services.
yeah, it's interesting. There is definitely a lot to learn with lash extensions. And well, and I think one of the other things is that because it is a repeat service where they're coming in every 2 to 3 weeks or more, to get their fills, it is, in my opinion, a little bit more sustainable as far as services go, just because you can build that repeat clientele and have that really consistent monthly revenue coming from it. So what's been your experience like? Like once you niche down, how is the clientele building process with that?
So when I was working for the boutique that I worked at, I built out where I was booked and busy, weeks in advance. And at that point, I could kind of feel like I was outgrowing the situation and I really wanted to go out on my own. So when I did, I started with literally only threading a clientele. I maybe had a facial or two, but I feel like that kind of told me the path to go and like what to focus on. And it took me a little bit to decide to niche down because I think that when we're going out, especially as a brow artist, we have kind of cheap, I guess, if you want to say cheap's the wrong word, but low cost services, right? So it's hard to wrap your head around making enough money. We would need 30 in a day or something to make, like it doesn't get profitable right at the beginning. So it's harder to take. So I think that that's why I held on to like facials because like the larger ticket item was there. But honestly, I really wish that I wouldn't have done that. I think that it was important at the time for me to trial and error it, but I really wish that I would have just dove down and put my head in the books and just studied all brows, every angle of it that I ultimately now know, but only through the time of experience. I wish I would have honed it like I do now, like taken it as seriously, because I think these lower cost services don't get taken seriously. But when I zoom out and I look back, that's what built my business was those threading clients. I still have them 7 years later. So 7, 8 years later. So I think that we undervalue certain things. And I also feel like there's some chatter in the industry that you can't build a really good relationship with somebody in 15 minutes. And I just don't think that's true because I think it really depends on what you put into it. And I have had clients that have started threading and that's all they do. And I see them once a month or every 2 months or something, like not even that often. And they've still stayed with me over all of these years. And then I have people that I see all the time or have grown and evolved, and now they're doing laminations or now they're doing laminations and lash lifts, and they're coming to see me every 2 months for a very large investment. So I think it just depends on how serious you want to take things. And I think niching down is hard because you have to say goodbye to income. Like at the end of the day, that's really what it is. And when you're saying goodbye to those things, like saying goodbye to facials, I knew exactly how much money I was going to lose by not seeing those people the next month or 2 months out or whatever it was. And I think that's a hard pill to swallow because it takes a little while for you to replace that income with the next thing or with more clients. But I had to lose them in order to make the room for those new clients. So I think that it's something that you have to go into knowing that it's going to be a struggle at first, just like starting anything. And then you just have to know it's right and really just go with your gut and truly follow what is pulling you, because I think that's what we have to follow, is that drive, to keep going. Because I know that I would have reached a breaking point with the facials and mixing my focus. It just wouldn't have worked and something would have given. So it was going to come inevitably. So might as well make the targeted approach.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that as something that probably felt like scary at first, but it's like short-term sacrifice in a sense for like long-term gain. Like you're playing the long game when
Mm-hmm.
you are going into that. It reminds me of one of my lash besties when she decided she wanted to cut classic and hybrid lashes off of her service menu and she just wanted to exclusively do volume and mega volume. She was really nervous about that because it was these clients that she'd been seeing for years. And she's like, I don't want to just cut them out and tell them bye or like lose that income, which most of them did switch over to the volume or the mega volume. But in the end, it's like, okay, you're clearing out this space for these new clients. And for her, it was a higher like price point too. So she basically was giving herself a raise, even though in the short term it was a little bit scary and maybe she, lost a couple of clients. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think sometimes that kind of stuff is like all about perspective of like, okay, this isn't going to be ideal to begin with, but we're going to get there and it's going to help me reach my goals.
Yeah, I think that's business ownership as a whole. Like the longer you're in it, the more you're like, wow, it's a mind game. It's such a mindset focus and perspective, and also being introspective and like checking in with yourself. I feel like we kind of like auditing, like auditing your life, auditing your business, and just seeing like what's working and what's not working. Cause I think burnout is so real. And like there's so many things, we wear so many freaking hats now, especially in the beauty industry with social media and everything that it is. There's a lot that it takes to keep up and keep trending, like staying up with everything and, your education, what your clients are looking for, what their goals are. Everything changes, especially in I would say facials. Like there's obviously like a targeted result that they can get that doesn't flex quite as much. But I feel like with brows and lashes, the trends and the styles and the beauty things change so frequently. Like I think brows and lashes have always been like an kind of an expression, like artistic creativity for us as a whole, maybe more so with women and people into makeup. I would say maybe not women only, but like the more feminine side that are really into like showing up who they want to be, and that's kind of using that to do so. And so I think that it's hard. It's a lot to swallow. And so I think checking in regularly is really important.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like you were saying, like things change and evolve so often. I think it's really important when you are a lash or brow artist, you're continuing to take continued education and like keep up on what the newest techniques are and products and styles. I don't know about in the brow industry, but in the lash industry, the styles that are popular and trending and that clients want in the last couple of years has been a lot different than what it was previous to that. It was like the really thick, heavy, like mega volume looks with the perfect top line, and now it's more like wispy, natural, wet sets, really textured sets, and it's like that's a very different technique and a very different skill set and like mapping than the previous styles were.
I think it's honestly paralleled to the brow world. Because I think if you think back of like I don't know, maybe 2016 to 2018. That was the Anastasia dip brow like time to shine.
Don't we love it?
Carving out those brows.
Yeah, yeah.
And like with the heavy lashes, it's complicated. And it was, I mean, they were so dark and bold. It was so obvious when they were off or different sized or anything. So like I think it was almost a benefit, at least for me, is learning to have to put up with that made now the natural, softer look so much easier because we had to build those skills, right? We're doing all this mapping for our clientele, you guys with the eye shape and like, just making it all didn't work within their eye. And then also with the brows and just trying to make sure everything's even. I think it was more tedious. And I'm very thankful for the fact that it's kind of transitioned to this more natural. That's always been my vibe personally, aesthetically. So I'm super stoked that the clients have kind of took that turn. I would say brow lamination and tinting kind of borderline, still kind of bold, but in a more soft way and a lot easier to achieve than I would say. Like the hybrid brow, I think is the closest we have to the Anastasia kind of dip brow look. And I would take hybrid tint over dip brow any day.
Yeah, I remember when I worked at a franchise lash studio, we used to sit it was like brand new. They had just opened it, so we didn't have a lot of clients right off the bat. So we would sit in the lobby, like at the front desk, watching the Anastasia brow dip, like makeup tutorials, like Jaclyn Hill, like the whole thing. That is what we watched like every day in 2016. So
Yeah.
that brought back some memories when you said that.
I love the industry for that reason. It's so iconic because I think that there's the fashion world side of things and we can watch the changes. And I mean, we throw like the 90s or the 70s or 60s or whatever out there, and you immediately have that thought. And it's fun for our industry to have the same thing where you can throw out dip brow and be like, oh my God, such an iconic time for the brows.
Yeah.
Wasn't our best look, maybe not, but it was iconic for sure.
Well, I mean, yeah, definitely. There's some interest. I mean, it's just my personal opinion. I feel like there's definitely some interesting brow trends. I don't know what the consensus is in the brow world, but I feel like the very like straight up brow laminations where it's like, or like where they're drawing their brows on like straight up. I don't know. Personally, I don't think it looks that great, and I feel like that's gonna be one of those ones that we look back, like the really skinny stick straight brows from like the 90s and whatever. I feel like that's one of those things we're gonna look back on with like these
Yeah.
crazy straight up brows of like, what were we doing?
Call it our DIY era and trying to figure out how to laminate.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously brow laminations that look really good, and it's like a very awesome service for that. I just personally, when it's, I don't know, just drawn on every single one, like straight up, I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like we're gonna cringe at that one day.
I 100% agree. I totally agree. I think that we are definitely taking some creative aspects there, but I think that lamination just came over and was done a specific. I think we overcorrected. I think we had like downward, outward brows, and we just overcorrected too far. Thankfully, we've all continued our education and made them look 1,000 times better if they're being, properly done. But I think you can take a look and notice whether it's like DIY or somebody very new to the lamination world.
It's not a bad thing though. It's just like it's the like well, like you're saying, it's creative expression, and everyone's going to be different with their personal preferences and what they like and don't like. And I think that that's important to highlight because clients are going to like different things than others. So I think that's okay to have like your own personal expression as an artist too, of like, this is my style, this is how I do things, and let yourself be able to like build up a clientele who likes that. I remember when I was still lashing, like there were girls in our town and like women in our town who did like really great mega volume lashes, like very full, very long, very dramatic mega volume. While that was not my personal vibe, their clientels, they were killing it. They did really well with that. And even now, when it's not the popular style, they're still killing it doing the thick, heavy, like mega volume styles. So
Yeah.
I think that that's important to point out that like, just because it isn't our personal preference doesn't mean, doesn't mean there's not a clientele out there for that. And like, you can have your own style and be successful with that regardless of like what the trends are.
Absolutely. I think there's two sides to that coin. I think they're and both in their own benefit too. I think one side of it is you can be, like you said, find your style and stick with it because you'll find a client base that's obsessed as well. And you'll be able to fill your books with that and have a sustained continuing business with that. But I think the flip side of it is too, is being open to clients' expression And I think that you can also build a really solid clientele, a very happy clientele by customizing and being able, like keeping up with your education and being able to do both looks and then being able to completely customize. And I think that sets you apart in itself. You can either choose one style that you're obsessed with and stick with it and maybe offer variations or of one very solid look. You can be doing the same thing every day. If that's your favorite thing to do, do it. You'll find your people. But I think it's like deciding what you want to do and then just going really all in on it.
Yeah, I like that you said customizing too. I feel like that's something that's going to be really important moving forward, like the future of, I mean, I would even think in the brow industry, like if
I
you're able
agree.
to customize people's sets or their brows, it's going to make a big difference in the longevity and the sustainability of your career. And like you're going to be able to keep up with any kind of trend. If you can give them a custom service, I feel like that's going to go really far in standing out in your area. Like I
Yeah.
know where I'm at right now, like where I live now in Idaho. Basically, in a smaller town, I feel like they're not as prone to keeping up on their education and taking the updated courses with the newer techniques. And a lot of the styles and the techniques they're using and the outcome of it, it's not customized. It's a very like one set fits all type of work. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But I feel like especially if you're in small town areas, if you can keep up with the trends, if you can keep up on your education, it's going to be very, very easy to stand out because your sets are going to look custom. They're going to look like I don't know, more modern, I guess. I don't know. I just feel like you're going to be able to stand out really easily by staying on top of
Yeah.
that.
I think you
And
just kind of like make yourself a
technique.
dinosaur when you're not keeping up with
Yes, that's a good
and
way to say it.
yeah, true. And I just feel like you remove yourself as the expert. Like at the end of the day, I want to know more than my clients, even if that's about weird random TikTok trends. I want to remain the expert in the room. Like I want to know more. I don't want somebody schooling me on what a brow lamination is or some new brow trend. Like even if it's not my thing and I don't want to offer it, I want to know about it. I want to keep up on all these things. I want to take education even if it's not something that I do. Like personally a freehand artist. I don't really like to map my brows because that's just how I am. But I recently purchased and I'm taking a mapping course. I think it's super duper important to know these techniques and be aware of things to strengthen myself and my abilities. I don't have to run with it. I don't have to agree with everything and every aspect of any training that I take, but I will continue to take the trainings and take everything. And I think when you become more of a expert in your field and really wanting to stay on top of everything, you can take any course, whether it's related to your industry or not, and walk away with a lesson or learn something. So I think that there's just a lot of strength in education. And like you said, customizing is going to be huge. It is huge. It will remain huge. I think that's something that will never die. And having the ability to listen to your client, have that consultation, and know what route to take given what they're giving you sets you apart a million miles away from anybody else not doing these types of things. The client care is always going, no matter what the trends are, is going to be the top concern. And any business wanting any sort of longevity and client retention, being able to listen to them and give them what they want, even if it might take the trial and error a little bit to get on the same page, because I know that sometimes we have ludicrous like copper cowboy becoming a new hair color. Like they come up with stuff and we kind of have to figure out what they're saying. They might come up with crazy names, but as long as you're taking the time to listen to your clients, you'll have that client for life.
Yeah, most definitely. And that made me laugh with the cowboy copper because like, yeah, that was definitely a huge hair trend last year for sure. One of our social media clients is a hair salon. And so we did a couple TikToks for him with the cowboy copper and they always took off way faster than any other videos. It was pretty funny. But yeah, I agree with you. And, customizing and the way I view it too is like, okay, you have different tools in your tool belt. So then when you have different clients who come in who want different looks or have different situations or whatever it is, like you have the tools in your tool belt you're able to use for that client. So for me, it's like, okay, you have different volume fanning techniques. So then you're not just depending on one technique or method of doing things.
Absolutely.
Kind of shifting gears a little bit here. So the lash industry, there's been a lot of lash artists and a lot of businesses who have been really struggling this year. It's been a hard year for a lot of people, lots of rough water out there. What's it been like in the brow industry? Have you guys kind of felt that crunch a little bit too?
Yeah, I think yes and no. I think the economy hitting in the way that it is, yeah, I've noticed a downtick in my bookings. Like I'm not booked solid. Thankfully, I've established myself and have grown to a place where I'm still keeping my income consistent, which is really important. I think carving that aspect out in your business, being able to get to a place where you're not having to remain booked and busy in order to make a living. I don't want to have every single slot on my schedule booked in order to make the income that I want to make. I want being booked solid to be a bonus. So I think that's just to be said in general, but getting there is hard. And I totally understand that. And I do think that we've taken a hit. I think that in the brow world, the difference, of course, between brows and lashes is always going to be the fact that we don't have a time limit. Technically, I would prefer my client come every, around 4 to 6 weeks, but I'm fine with them coming 8 to 10 because it's not going to be a detriment to their service. It's just going to be maybe a little more work for me. But like with tints and laminations and shapings, we can go longer. So I think we have a little bit more breathing room as far as not losing clients or, letting people go in that way because we can still accommodate them in a different styling of budget. So I think that unfortunately, it's just the nature of the services. Like with lash extensions, they're going to look bad. They can't go 8 weeks. They can't do, you have a limitation in that sense. So I totally understand the pivoting. I think that if I were a lash artist, it would definitely be the time to cook some creative options up, or maybe expand a little bit in your offerings if you were on that route of wanting to try and experiment in another way, and maybe just flex different creative muscles while you're stagnant in what's not working quite as well as it was. I always like to pivot a little bit if I'm feeling like what my current market is not liking. I want to have as many offerings and be able to suit any style of client and know your demographic. Like, I feel like I was born and raised in my town. I know the people kind of Chico. I've kind of learned what their styles are. Like, you talking about small towns versus cities, like there's going to be a difference in style and preference. And I think knowing those things is really important. But I think this economy is hard. I think we're all taking hits. I think that's why most of us are doing online education and we're doing podcasts where, we're outsourcing our income. We're making sure, I think that's another thing to stay in business, is to diversify your revenue streams, not only focusing on one thing. That's why I think it's huge to have, retail options, to have online services or options and, different things like that. And then also make sure to stay communicative with your clients. I think that's huge, is making sure that you're on the pulse of what their expectations are and that they're still happy. Because I think that some people, even if maybe their budget has shifted and things have changed, as it has all of ours, they'll make it work. If they respect the relationship and they're still getting something out of it, they're going to make it work. Right. So I think just staying on the pulse of if it's working or not for them is really important.
Yeah, I like that you said staying communicative with your clients. Anyone who's listened to like my past podcast episodes knows that like I talk a lot about that just because I think it's really, really important. Client communication, that's something that even now with my business being a little bit different, it's still like top priority for me. But yeah, the different demographics and things like that's, I think, something that is really important. And then that's kind of like leads into what I wanted to ask you about next, is adding lash lifts or brow laminations, brow threading to lash extension services. Like that kind of, I feel like those pair really well. Like, what's been your experience with that? I know you said before we started recording that you've taught different like lash artists and things like that too.
Yeah. So I don't know if I said this at the beginning, but I'm predominantly a threader. So I do hand-tied threading in my studio. That's my preferred method of shaping brows. I've also have kind of a stance with brow lamination where I feel like if we're telling our clients not to exfoliate with brow lamination, it seems crazy to be waxing at the same appointment. So I do not do that. I only thread. But I think the cool part of brows in general, so not just singling out threading, but it's a short service and it's a low upsell. Right. It's so easy to convince somebody to do their brows. If you're good at it, of course, let's not botch anybody's brows. But I think it's easy to talk them into, I'm already helping your lash area. Why not help the brows? Because our lashes and our brows, they're framing the structure of our face. They're the first thing that draws you in. It just kind of is where we gaze first. So I think that the lashes and brows will always go hand to hand. I just started lash lifts about, I want to say a year or two ago. I have done almost zero marketing for my lash lifts, and I have a steady client retention with them because I do lamination or I do shaping, and they're like, "Oh, like do you do lash lifts? Do you do those?" I think those ones get asked a lot about in the industry, and I think what we were just talking about, people are going more natural. And also the longevity of a lash lift is more flexible. They can go every 2 months and just get a lash lift, feel like they're still getting that extra zhuzh in their lash area, but the lot lower ticket, right? So I love that. And I even do a little bit of a discount. So I charge 100 for my lash lifts and my laminations if they come in individually, but I charge 180 if they come in to get the lash lift and the brow lamination together, because I can do it in hour and 15. So I'm not actually spending that much more time, whether I'm because I do a lash lift in an hour, I do a lamination in 45 minutes. So I'm not really wasting more time per se. And I'm still making that extra money in that short amount of time. So I can give them a discount without losing any money. And then they feel like, oh, I'm saving even more money. So I think there's ways that we can not undersell ourselves and not like, I do kind of have a feeling about discounting yourself all the time. I think that it can send the wrong message to clients. But I think when you get to a certain level of cost, you can make it work within their budget and you're not losing money, because the goal should always be upselling, needs to be more money in your pocket, more income into your business for sure. We're working harder, obviously, so we need to be compensated for it. But I think clients can swallow that larger ticket price when they're getting that little bit of discount kind of a thing, So I just feel like brows are one of those things that plugs in really easily in a schedule too. I think most of us have run into that 15-minute gap, that 30-minute gap, those weird things that definitely can't fit in a lash extension or even a lash lift, but a brow appointment can plug in almost anywhere. And things like lash lifts have processing times too. So doing like a little or like a lamination, like you can do things while with the brow area while other things are happening, which is really cool and flexible as far as not wasting more time and getting that little more extra income. And I think they just plug in well as an upsell service, the same way maybe like an underarm would for a body waxer. I just think it's one of those things that you can make that extra money. And when you get really good at it, you can be charging a lot for that extra upsell. It can go from, maybe a $10-15 upsell to a $25-30 upsell. And that's not pocket change.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I always would tell my students, looking for these things that are low time or that you can double up and do at the same time. And it has a higher profit margin, always increases just the amount of money you're making in the same time frame. And a lot of these things, with the same clients, like you were talking about, they already know you, they already trust you, they already like you. And then you're just able to add on that other service, other things, even just a brow tint during lash extensions. That's something that's so easy and just increases the amount that they're spending with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that we were talking right before we popped on about lash artists in particular. As a threading trainer, it's so crazy. The conversion that I've seen with lash artists learning threading is so incredible because of your guys' your finger hand strength, wrist strength, and hand dexterity is already there. So it's so crazy. I love training lash artists and threading because I just feel like you guys get it so much quicker. Because when you're like a waxer and different things like that, they're not really zeroed in, maybe tweezing here and there, but it's not as consistent. Lashing all day long in such a tedious way just parallels with the threading so well. It's crazy.
I mean, I've never thought about that before, but honestly, it makes a lot of sense.
Right?
Yeah, oh yeah, that would make sense,
Totally. It shocked me the first time. I was so impressed. I was like, wow, you're threading so quickly. And then I was talking to her about it and I was like, oh, it's just that consistent thing. Lash artists.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and like you were saying, I feel like it does really just pair well, and then you're able to. I think that this year, if there's anything that you can really look at going into the holiday season, maybe you can do a package service too of okay, full set of lashes, a brow service and stuff, and do it for, I don't know, you'd have to look at your costs and your expenses and what you want your profit margin to be and whatnot, but
yeah,
definitely something.
Sorry, that's a great point. One of the things that I always tell my students, especially when thinking about adding on brows or adding on a new service, the investment is always really tricky, right? We want that return on the ROI right away. But the difficulty is learning a new skill takes that front kind of investment. And so on top of that education, you don't want to have to buy $300 worth of product or anything like that. So I always love the fact that adding brows is great, but adding threading is even better because a spool of thread costs $4 or $5. And, you're really just looking at that educational investment. So I feel like it's really cool. It's a lot easier to swallow than having to go get a full waxing setup and kit and all of that and pick which wax to use. It's kind of nice to just go zero in and just focus on learning brows and not have to worry about all of the setup and the supplies and things like that.
Yeah, that's cool. And do you feel like from a client perspective, like a lot of clients, I don't know, what's the preference like? Do more clients prefer like wax, threading? I mean, obviously you see a lot of threading people, but like
Yeah,
what's the pulse on that?
yeah, that's a very interesting thing. I would say that I'm more biased in my town because I've kind of carved out my name from the get as a threader. So I have a couple things to say on this. I would say the number one thing is that I've really carved out. So I don't really have my clients all are coming to me for a very specific reason, and it's because they have a contraindication to waxing. So a lot of them will come because they have a preference. Some of them like to come, but I would say a lot of them are being like, oh, I started tretinoin and I just got on a retinol. I'm doing chemical peels or whatever. And the benefit of that is that I get referrals from other providers in the area. So I'm getting not just your friend or your neighbor telling you to come see me. I'm getting your sugarist, your waxer, your esthetician, your lash artist. I'm getting people that already are respected and trusted from their clients. And I think there's a lot to be said from a licensed professional giving a recommendation versus your friend or family member. So I really like that for threading. I would say the one thing is that I think threading has a really bad name for itself, and I'm actively trying to change that. But I have clients that will come in and they're new and they'll be like, oh, I only get waxed. And I have this conversation a lot with new clients. I'll just be like, have you ever tried threading? Would you be interested? Can I do like the top part threading or something? And I just want to get my kind of test them with it and show them my skill level with threading. And almost always I get a response of, wow, that is not what I thought it was going to feel like. That's just the same as waxing, or I was nervous for no reason, or anything like that. I think that it's really the skill level. I think the same way there can be bad waxing where you get burned and your skin lifted, there can be bad threading where it hurts and it's more painful and uncomfortable. So I think it's all about learning the proper technique. Skill level is important. And then, of course, speed. I think the same way with quick waxing. We've all had a slow wax or a slow Brazilian or something like that, where it's been like the most torturous thing you've ever had. And then you go see somebody new and you're like, that was so fast and so much less painful. And I think speed has to go hand in hand with hair removal. It's just an uncomfortable thing that we go through.
Yeah, trial and error thing with that, right? So I would assume those are types of like techniques and different things that you teach like in your online course for threading, correct? Or the online course that's coming, right? Because you said you told me earlier it's coming out in like January.
Yes, early in the new year. I currently have a threading manual, and I just felt like the manual was released because I had somebody ask who didn't have the investment for a full-blown training. She just wanted the manual to get a taste for it. So I was like, yeah, I can sell my manuals like that. That's totally fine. But over the time that I've been selling the manuals, I'm like, these are not quite enough. Like I want to give you guys all. So I'm kind of changing them, converting them, and expanding them into a full-blown course. So you'll still get a manual, and it's going to be a lot bigger and full of more education. And then you'll also get videos and things like that for those that are more visual learners. But it'll go over everything: technique, speed, different case studies, situations, skin type, all of that.
That's really cool. Well, I'm excited for you. I mean, I know that's always like a lot of work to get like everything online for that. So good luck with that and congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So any last thoughts or tips, tricks, advice for anyone who might be listening?
I feel like brows are going to be something that stick around forever. So it might be the best time if you're having, less on your schedule, less on your plate, and you want to try something new. I think it's definitely something that can be really helpful, but stick with it. If you love it, stick with it. We'll get through this tough time. And I am online on Instagram at the.eyebrow.goddess. And you can find me at the same for my website and things like that. Reach out, DM if you have any questions.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.